Whenever you get these milestones, it's an opportunity to reflect and look back. Maybe you could take us back to your days as CEO, 80s, early 90s, the rise of the PC, the Macintosh, and whether you thought anything like this was ever possible.
Well, the thing I think about today is back in 1982 when I first drove up to the Apple building in Cupertino, and it was a black and white pirate flag flying from the roof, and Steve Jobs had invited me in to see his then very secret, what he called insanely great project, which was the development of the first Macintosh. The 1980s were all about bringing ease of use and graphics to the screen. And at that time, Sarah, Steve Jobs was the only person in the world who was thinking that the future of computing power was going to be for non-technical people to be able to do really easy-use things on creative type applications. And that was a big breakthrough. So the 80s was all about graphics, ease of use. There was almost an 8 or 9 year lapse between the power of computers to be able to do anything beyond graphics, because it wasn't until we got to the late 1990s that we actually had the World Wide Web at scale, that we had the ability to do miniaturized computer components. And of course, Steve Jobs once again saw the power of making the Macintosh, the access to the web with the iMac. Then he saw the ability in the late 1990s to come up with the iPod, said here's 1,000 songs in your pocket. And eventually, of course, Steve's greatest vision was in 2007 when, again, Moore's Law enabled computers to be powerful enough that we went from 2G networks to 3G networks, and Steve reinvented photography with the iPhone in 2007. So as I look out to the future, we're going to get one of these big Moore's Law cycled events again, and it will probably happen over the next 5 to 7 years when computers become incredibly powerful in the era of sensors, of augmented reality, and artificial intelligence.
That's interesting, because we at this desk talk a lot about the pace of innovation on the hardware versus the migration of the core business to the services side. I wonder which you think is going to be more potent over the next, say, 3 to 5 years. And was services a significant topic of discussion in your time there? I know it's a long time ago.
Well, services really weren't. Remember, when I was there, Carl, there was no World Wide Web. It did not exist. There were no cell phones even at that point in time, no digital cell phones. So no, we didn't think services at all. Nobody was doing services models. It was all about selling apps, shrink-wrap software. But clearly, services are a driving factor for Apple today. And you have to say that Tim Cook's done a brilliant job of being able to adapt to a slowing growth for smartphones, including the iPhone, and being able to manage the profitability, the cash flow. At the same time, he's showing real growth and innovation with the services. So hats off to Tim and what he's accomplished.
When you think about some of the significant advances that you just mentioned that enabled Apple to be what it is today, what is coming in the future? Is it AI? Is it 5G, which I end up talking a lot about here, in the same way that it enabled 4G or 3G certainly enabled the actual iPhone to do all the things that it can do today?
Yeah, I think it's all of those things. What makes Apple different than other high-tech companies is I think Tim Cook has done something that really is the next step beyond what Steve Jobs did. Steve Jobs created a loyalty with users that is unparalleled in the world, certainly for any consumer product. What Tim Cook has done is he's built a loyalty with shareholders, and he's done it by taking advantage of the high prices that Apple charges for its products, which is earned because of its brand reputation and product reputation. And he's been able to build a business model that's very attractive to hold on to shareholders, which means that he's buying back stocks, about $100 billion of stock this year. He has huge reservoir of additional capital beyond that. He gives out dividends. And so he doesn't have to be on the bleeding edge of innovation. Remember, he's valued as a value stock, not as a growth stock. And so he's really positioned the company well saying that he doesn't have to make a bet on, does Apple go out and buy Tesla or things like that. He can really just track at scale and watch which things are going to become important and then adapt to them.
It's a good point about the buybacks and stocks in general, John. It looks like there's this three-way race right now for the next $1 trillion milestone. Microsoft, Google parent Alphabet, and Amazon all around the $800 to $900 billion in market value. Do you have a guess of who could get there first?
Well, I think what's different with Apple is that Apple has about 10 times more cash than, let's say, Amazon. I think Jeff Bezos is maybe the best CEO in the world right now, because he's been able to create business after business after business, and there's no reason why he won't continue to do that. But he's valued as a growth stock, not as a value stock, the way Apple is. And so you're betting on Jeff's brilliance to continue to open up new lines of business. In the case of Microsoft, it's an amazing turnaround. Satya Nadella has come in and completely reinvented Microsoft in a relatively short period of time. Google is in another very strong position. So you've got some great companies out there. My bet would be that the next one to go over $1 trillion will be Amazon.